Scott, I said it's over. You're just too immature for me. He gave me a quizzing look, then said,
Huh? What? Babe, we're great together.
I rolled my eyes. I just figured I don't need to be with someone with such a childish mentality. I need someone mature and...
Whatever, Linda. Find me when you change your mind.
He grunted. Then he put his earphones in and walked off. Well, at 15, I needed a guy with a certain maturity, not some loser who still found fart jokes funny. Please. My friends, Patty and Louise, agreed with me. I'm far too popular, pretty, and confident to date just anyone. Anyway, as luck should happen, I was walking along the school corridor when I saw this lost-looking but amazingly handsome guy. Flicking out my hair, I approached him with my friendliest voice. Hey, are you okay? Flustered, he replied,
Yes, which way is it to the principal's office?
I'm going that way anyway, so I'll show you. This was a blatant lie, as my class was in the other direction, but he didn't know that. Later that day, I walked into physics class with Louis and stopped dead. Standing at the front of the class was that handsome guy. It turns out he was the substitute teacher, and written on the board behind him was the name Mr. Hulton.
My first name is Colin, by the way.
He smiled. I whispered to Louis, Seems like science class is heated up. Then I walked over to my seat. There's no way I could concentrate on the density of materials, not with the hottest teacher ever sharing the same airspace as me. I needed to find a way to get to know him and show him that I wasn't like the other girls my age. Instead, I was far more mature and self-assured than them. So, at the end of class, I walked over and asked him if he'd go over a few things with me. He gladly agreed, so I got to sit down next to him and daydreamed in the scent of his musky cologne. Physics class became my favorite. With my head in my hands, I watched him address the class. He saw me looking at him a few times, but he always quickly looked away. It's okay. I got it. He was just trying to look professional. Then, one time he asked the question,
According to Einstein, is light a partial or a wave?
I stuck my hand in the air and grinned. He looked a little flustered.
Linda?
I puckered my lips and looked straight at him. That shirt color really suits you, sir. It brings out your eyes. Some of the other kids in class laughed, and he awkwardly fiddled with his collar. So cute! Then he coughed and said,
Linda, do you know the answer?
Oh!
Do you know the answer?
Oh! What was the question again? I stared dreamily at him. Honestly, I couldn't remember anything afterwards but his charmingly severe look. Then one afternoon, Colin asked me to stay behind after class. Result, he must have fallen for this Linda's irresistible charms, didn't he? I shyly stood before him, and in a serious tone he said,
Linda, is everything okay with you? You seem off lately.
No, sorry, it's awful. I glumly looked down at my feet and took a few seconds to continue. My family is so poor, and my home life is just horrible. I only have nice things because my friends lend me stuff. His gaze softened. I pretended to dab at my fake tears. Please, don't tell anyone. I couldn't cope with the shame. It's enough just having you to talk to. I smiled at him.
Yeah, sure.
He looked at me gently and said,
Anytime.
Oh my. His eyes were so big and blue and, I could drown in them. He obviously liked me too. He just couldn't do anything about it yet, as he was nervous. With him being my teacher and all. But soon he'd realize that me and him were so meant to be. Like Ariana Grande and Dalton Gomez. I continued to stay behind after classes so I could talk to Colin about my make-believe terrible home life. He always listened and told me it'd be okay. He was so sweet and sensitive. Then one time, I left Colin's classroom to find Scott there, waiting for me. Ugh. I told him to go away and started walking, but he followed me.
So what?
You're into old men now?
What?
I glared at him.
Yeah, I'm not stupid.
I know you like Mr. Hulton. You need to snap out of that dreamland and see he's on a different level to you. Angered by this, I looked him square in the eye and snidely replied, No, Scott, you're the one on a different level to me. About 50 levels down, to be precise. I gave the thumbs down sign. He looked wounded as he turned his back to me and started walking off. He had it coming. I walked outside to see Scott lingering around, talking to Patty and Lewis. They didn't see me, so I overheard Scott say, "She can't see how tragic she's being." You know her. She's so stubborn. Of course. Mr. Halton doesn't like her in that way. Ahem. I faked a cough, and they all turned to look at me. I put my hand on my hip and stared them down. Look, I'm sorry, Linda. We're just worried about you. Yeah, this fantasy of yours will hurt you. Ugh! What did they know? I rolled my eyes. For your information, Colin and I are really dating. In fact, he's taking me out tonight, so I can't hang out. I walked off the other way, knowing full well that the looks on their face would be priceless. I know Colin wasn't actually my boyfriend, yet. In fact, he's taking me out tonight, so I can't hang out. I walked off the other way, knowing full well that the looks on their face would be priceless. I know Colin wasn't actually my boyfriend, yet. But I knew it would happen soon. It was written in the stars. The next day, as I walked into school, I noticed some of the other kids whispering to each other and pointing at me. Okay, weird. Maybe it was my new dress or something. I bought it because it was an exact color match to Colin's eyes. But things got weirder in physics class, because as soon as Colin walked in, everybody started giggling. Colin looked confused and said, "Okay, what's so funny?" Then this girl, Sally, shyly muttered out, "Sir, we heard you have a new girlfriend." He raised an eyebrow. "Yes, that's correct. How do you know?" He gave a nervous laugh. "Actually, this shirt is a gift from her." I felt the entire class's eyes turn to me. Well, except for Colin's. I tried to keep my cool, but inside I was fuming. How dare some other woman steal my man and force him to wear that hideous shirt? I knew I needed to keep up the lie, so after class I walked over to Lewis and Patty and said, "How cute does Cullen look in that shirt?" They both frowned at me. Then Patty replied, "So you really are dating him?" "Yep," I gave a nod. "Right." She gave a skeptical look. They all needed to realize that Colin and I were the real deal. So I bought a box of candy and cut out a heart-shaped tag saying, "Love you, honey," with my candy floss scented gel pen. I did feel kinda nervous as I walked over to him, but our love was meant to be. "Hi, Linda. Can I help you?" "I got you this." I placed the gift down on his desk. He read the note and his face fell. Then, in a firm voice, he said, "Look, Linda, this is wrong." "No," I shook my head. "I know you like me." "Linda, please, you're my student. You're just a child." "No, we're meant to be together." "You love me. I know you do." "I don't," he said sternly. "Now please leave." He rejected me? This had to be down to his new girlfriend. She was obviously poisoning his mind, as there was no way he couldn't like me. I wasn't leaving the room until he admitted he loved me too. So, crying, I sat down on the floor and folded my arms. Right at that moment, Patty and Louise rushed into the room and helped me up. Then they stared daggers at Colin as they led me out into the corridor. Turned out they'd followed me and observed through the window. How embarrassing. Thinking quick, I blubbered out, "He's such a jerk. I devoted all of myself to him, but he's bored of me now, so he dumped me." Just like that, my friends comforted me as they told me he wouldn't get away with it. There's no way I could face Colin again just yet. So, I feigned being sick and stayed home. Only when I returned to school, So, crying, I sat down on the floor and folded my arms. Right at that moment, Patty and Louise rushed into the room and helped me up. Then they stared daggers at Colin as they led me out into the corridor. Turned out they'd followed me and observed through the window. How embarrassing. Thinking quick, I blubbered out, "He's such a jerk. I devoted all of myself to him, but he's bored of me now, so he dumped me." Just like that, my friends comforted me as they told me he wouldn't get away with it. There's no way I could face Colin again just yet. So, I feigned being sick and stayed home. Only when I returned to school, he wasn't there. Then, the principal called me to their office. I walked in to see both my parents sitting there with devastated looks on their faces. Oh no. What was going on? "Sweetie, we're sorry for not protecting you more." Mom looked over at me with glassy eyes. Then the principal said, "Mr. Halton has been fired." and the police are investigating him. Rest assured, nothing like this will happen again. Huh? Colin had been fired? Why? Then the reality hit me. It was because they thought he'd been having a relationship with me. I muttered out, "No, you've got it all wrong. Nothing happened." "Linda, I know this is difficult, but he's a bad man." It didn't matter what I said. They remained convinced that I was so manipulated by Colin that I'd say anything to clear his name. Straight after the meeting, I found Patty and Louise, and they confessed that they hated seeing me so upset, so they'd told the principal about me and Colin. I took a deep breath, then I blurted out, "But I made it up! All of it!" Of course, they were super angry with me for lying, but after bearing their tantrums for some 30 minutes, they agreed to help me clear his name. So, they went to the cop station with me, and we told them everything. It worked, as Colin had his name cleared, but unsurprisingly, he never came back to teach at my school. The three of us were suspended from school, and my parents grounded me for a month. Patty and Louise are still my friends, but I can see they don't trust me anymore. Anytime I tell them anything, they give each other these, "yeah, right" looks. I feel so guilty for everything I did. It was never meant to go that far, but I now realize that my childish behavior almost cost a good man his future. I wish I could apologize to Colin in person, but I know I'll never get a chance to. Please be careful with your words, as they could ruin someone's career, life, everything. If, like me, you adore your teacher, then please just respect them, be nice, and let them be.
Hey, I'm Veronica, and this story is about my crazy ex-boyfriend, Marcus. We met on Tinder 2 years ago and had our first date at an ice cream shop. He was charming, funny, and he had a cute Canadian accent. After we said goodbye, he sent me dozens of messages saying how much he wanted to see me again. Of course, it was a bit weird, but I loved that he wanted me so badly. Things got really crazy on our second date. Marcus took me out for a romantic dinner under the night sky, and after a couple glasses of wine, he told me he loved me. And it was only our second date. You probably think I was creeped out by him, but to be honest, I felt the same way and told him I loved him too. Not long after that, he asked me to move in with him. I agreed, and at first everything was perfect. We spent all our free time together, and while at work, we would still text each other all the time. However, as time went on, Marcus slowly became more and more possessive. It started with him checking my phone whenever I came back from work, and he always asked me if I had talked to other guys. I guess I was so in love with him that I thought that this was his way of showing how much he cared about me. I even let him install a GPS tracker app on my smartphone, so he could always see where I am. I mean, I had nothing to hide, right? But then things got worse, because he wanted me to cut off all my relationships with my friends and even my family. I didn't know it then, but now I understand that he was trying to isolate me so I'd be alone, helpless, and under his control. Eventually, Marcus was the only person left in my life, but I didn't enjoy spending time with him anymore. He was always angry and always blaming me for making him mad. He said I just had to love him more, so he could stop worrying about me cheating on him. He said I understand that he was trying to isolate me so I'd be alone, helpless, and under his control. Eventually, Marcus was the only person left in my life, but I didn't enjoy spending time with him anymore. He was always angry and always blaming me for making him mad. He said I just had to love him more, so he could stop worrying about me cheating on him. He said I should be as faithful as him. The way he kept talking about being faithful, I started to get suspicious, and I asked one of my coworkers to approach Marcus during his lunch break and to ask him for his number. And guess what? He gave it to her straight away. I was so mad. When he came home, I confronted him, but he denied doing anything wrong. I played the recording that my friend made of them talking. You could clearly hear my friend Clara say, "If you give me your number, maybe we can go on a date next week." And then Marcus replied, "Yeah, that sounds great." However, instead of admitting he was wrong, he started to blame me, saying I was the reason he wanted to meet other girls because I didn't love him enough. I don't know why it took me so long to break up with him, but when I said it was over, he started crying and begged me not to go. He even promised he'd change. Oh my God, I was so naive. I actually gave him a second chance, but after 2 weeks, his old behaviors resurfaced. I told him I was going out for some drinks with people from work, and we had been there maybe half an hour when Marcus stormed up to the table and started yelling, accusing me of cheating on him right in front of my boss. It was so embarrassing. Turned out he had used the GPS app to track me down. That was it. I was done with him. I was lucky not to lose my job because of his immature behavior. And this time I broke up with him for good. Okay, let me give you some advice. If you're with someone who tries to control you, I want to tell you that that's not real love. It's abuse, and you deserve better. Thank you for listening to my